I guess I have to click got it.
I hit
You
leave
don't have
meeting.
to.
Is that bad if I hit leave meeting? Yeah.
Nice talking to you, Nick. See you later, man.
Yep.
All right, we'll give another minute or two, let people join. All right, Susan, you let me know when I'm allowed to start.
Let's give them a couple more minutes.
All right, cool.
Let's say 10:03.
All right.
I'll just talk faster. That's okay. The hands will get moving and the mouth will get moving. And
And I do have a couple people I know who said they were going to be late. So you'll see more people pop up as we go. All right, Ray, take it away.
All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I want to introduce our speaker for today's program, and his name is Nick Laurentis, also affectionately known to me as the Godfather. If he'd like to explain that at the beginning of his presentation, he can. Nick has probably known me more years than he'd like to imagine or admit, but he serves as a technology strategist and lead business automation analyst supporting facilities management solutions for the State Farm enterprise. He has spent over 25 years designing, developing, delivering, training, and consulting hundreds of RIM and IG and technology solutions. He is an active leader and speaker in the RIM profession and has served as president of ARMA International's board of directors, chairman of the ARMA International Educational Foundation's board of trustees, and most recently, regent for applicant and member relations on the Institute of Certified Records Management Board of Regents. He has been awarded ARMA's Distinguished Service Award in 2014. He holds an IGP, Information Governance Professional Certification, a CRM, a Certified Records Manager Certification, is ITIL V3 Service Management Fundamental Certified, and has completed IAPP certification, foundation training, and holds a Senior Claim Law Associate SCLA designation. That's a lot of initials, Nick. But
Yeah.
welcome to the ARMA Keystone PA chapter meeting, and thank you for being our presenter.
all right. Well, thank you. I have an intro that's a little shorter. My name is Nick Laurentis. I am a motivational speaker, and I used to live in a van down by the river, but now I have a home, and I'm remarried, and life is good. So, but thank you for the introduction, Ray. And yes, I've known Ray for a long time. Before Ray was a CRM, and since he's been a CRM, so I've enjoyed working with him over the years and kind of promoting professional certification. That's kind of what brought this topic up today. So, it wouldn't be a presentation without a motivational quote at the beginning. So I'll put this one up there. And this really sums me up very well. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I may learn, and I will learn. That is something that is true for me. I'm a very tactile learner. So whenever I start cross training, I'm actually going through training for a new position at my company right now. I need to get in the weeds. I need to do things hands-on. And that topic will kind of come up as part of the theme, as you'll see in some of the things I talk about today. Our focus today is really going to be talking about, and before I get started too, I did warn Susan and Ray, I'm kind of coming off of a cold here. I have a horrendous cough, so I'm going to stay on camera here for a while, and I'll do that as long as I can. But I may go on mute periodically, so if you hear it go quiet for a few seconds, that's just me coughing in the background, and I don't want to do that in everybody's ears. So just giving you a heads up. The longer I talk, the worse it's going to get here. So, but we're going to cover the differences mainly between certificates and certifications. That's a big differentiator for some people, making sure you understand what those are. Understand some of the certifications that are available. I'm not going to cover everything. Obviously, there's lots of them, hundreds of them, in fact, but I'm going to key in on a few of those. We're going to review some of the RIM and IG certifications, comparing the learning domains and key attributes of each of those. So you'll have a good comparison for those that haven't really done any professional certification, kind of give you a ground up look at some of these major ones side by side. And then we're going to provide some tools for making the necessary informed decision for yourself as to what makes the most sense for you to pursue if you're looking to get a professional certification. Now, this is something that Ray kind of gave me the foot in the door here, but as he referred to the Godfather, as he mentioned, I was involved with the foundation for years. I was a past president of ARM International, and I've always felt very strongly, this goes back to my old chapter level, of trying to give back, and I always wanted to start a scholarship fund for chapter members that were looking to do professional development. And so years ago, 2009, we established a fund through the foundation where we raised some money to put together towards a scholarship, and we got a lot of senior members of ARM International at the time, and was mainly ARM International. Pulled people together at conference and raised some money. My first year, I think we raised almost $2,000 just in cash, just from people, kind of wanting to pitch in and help out. This has spiraled into a group that we raise money for education. Now, the tie-in to this is not to promote Nick and all the wonderful things Nick has done for the community. The tie-in is because we're talking about professional certification. This is sometimes little known to folks, but there's money available for people to help you offset some of the cost of professional certification. So there's a scholarship that we award every year. We typically award 6 $500 awards every year. So that's a total of $3,000 a year. The gee whiz figure on the screen there is we've given away 46 scholarships since 2009 officially. The first one we gave out, I think, was in 2012. And it's totaled almost $30,000 of awards that we've given out. So I will encourage you to, when I send the slide deck out to Susan, she's going to share this with the chapters members here. Look into this. Please apply. It typically comes up around summer, and it's awarded in right around the time of ARMA conference. So I would encourage you to apply for this if you're looking at taking any professional certification. Every little bit helps, and if we can give back to some folks that are furthering their careers, we look forward to doing that. So shameless plug aside. All right. This I bring up for a couple of reasons, not because we're going to go in depth to the e-discovery reference model or the IG reference model, as some portions of this are called. But this is going to tie into the theme, mainly the piece on the left, the IG reference model. You'll see that kind of pulled up and used as some of the things. We're going to use that as kind of some of the domains that we're talking about today. So you see IT, security, privacy, risk, legal, RIM, and business. So that model in particular, you'll see it used a couple of times. So I wanted to bring this up. For those that aren't familiar with it, it's available at edrm.net. I highly encourage you to go out and take a look at this if this is not something you've seen before. So my first agenda topic today was really to talk about the main difference between certificates and certifications. One of the most common types of certification in modern society is professional certification. Where a person is certified as being able to competently complete a job or task, usually by the passing of an examination and or the completion of a program of study. Some professional certifications also require one attain work experience prior to getting your certification. So, and then we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth, but ICRM is one of those that requires some actual practical usage in the workplace before you can actually sit for an exam. Some professional certifications are valid for a lifetime upon completing your requirements. Some of them require certification maintenance, as we'll talk about a little bit too. That means you have to get continuing education credits to maintain your certification over time. So that's one of the big things that's important to tell the difference there. Certificates typically, and I'm not going to badmouth any of them because I haven't taken a lot myself. I don't do a lot of the certificate programs, but I do know folks that have done these. It's from my experience, it seems like it's focused in on a class. So you would sign up for a 3-day seminar or something attending. And this goes back to my days when I was younger. It was like AIM seminars were the big ones. You'd go to AIM, these 3-day seminars, and at the end of the seminar, you were trained over those 3 days basically to pass the test. So you were learning some content, you were getting some benefit from that, but the real focus was really getting you to pass the test, which gave you the certificate at the end. Certifications, as I mentioned, required a little bit more beyond just the passing of tests. It was practical knowledge, experience, documented validity of some of your knowledge or things that you've done in the past to validate that you are in the field, you're in the profession, and that's something you do. This, I'll say, over the last 10 years has probably shifted a little bit. I think the generations have changed in terms of what's important to people. Some people are looking for that quick certification or certificate to get on their resume for a job posting. Some people are focused really on what is being asked for in the jobs that are out there. I have certifications of my own. I am somewhat biased. I'm not going to act like I'm not because I have certain ones and they mean something to me. But the CRM is one when I was looking for work at one point in my career. Helpful, very helpful to have. A lot of people ask for it. IGP has started appearing more. PMP is one that I've said is more of the generic that goes across all lines of business, in my opinion. But it's a very commonly known certification that sometimes you'll see required on a posting for a job. Sometimes it's specific technical training in a software or things like that are important. So it just depends on the individual and what stage of your career in and what you're looking for. So some examples of certificate programs, as I mentioned, ARMA still has 4, I believe, that are available. They've changed the name slightly over time, but they're the Essentials of Information Governance, the Essentials of RIM, the Essentials of the Principles, which are what used to be referred to as the Generally Accepted Record-Keeping Principles, and Professional Leadership. That is a certification that they offer their chapter leaders that develop through their program. There's a certificate in that now. AIM, as I mentioned, they have a lot on their website. If you're interested, I would encourage you to go out there, but these have changed even more significantly since when I looked at them years ago. I've refreshed this presentation for you folks, and it's been a while since I've done this one, so I had to refresh a lot of these, but you'll see some of those listed there. There's many, many more listed on their website. Now, I'm going to kind of take a slight tangent here. There are some graduate degrees and certificates through a university that you can qualify for, and I've listed some on the screen. These are coincidentally some of the partnerships that the ICRM has as well. The ICRM has actually leveraged that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more depth here shortly. But there are certificate programs at universities for adult learning, graduate learning, things that you can take a specific course load and come out of that with. It may not be a specific degree. You'll see some degrees referenced there, MARA and MLIS, but there are some certificate programs that give you just a certificate in a field of records management. So those are definitely something that, again, depending on your inclination, what's interesting to you, some people might want to do this instead of doing a professional certification. This goes with you. Obviously, this is something you've completed, like your college coursework, so it does live on with you. I've referenced there, San Jose State is big. A lot of our professional speakers, I know Andrew Asazi and several folks I know have taught actually, and I think Andrew's currently teaching at San Jose University. But there's a lot of folks that your names I'm sure you've seen are people that are affiliated with that university. Dominican, University of Texas, Austin. Some of the graduate certificate programs, as I referenced, are available on the right side there. I encourage you to go out and look at those though, but if you're interested. Now, this is that kind of cross-reference I mentioned earlier from the information governance reference model. ARMA has leveraged that to kind of do a graphic or a visual that they've put together that show kind of the different certifications out there And the purpose of this, obviously, for ARMA International is to show that the IGP is at the center of them all. We'll go, go figure. It's marketing, right? So they're wanting to advertise their certification and show how it touches everything. So that's it, but it is a good graphic because it does kind of give you a very high level view of some of the main certification, the letters, the alphabet soup that you see out there. Some are in like business audit. I'm not as familiar with that area, but that kind of gets you familiar with some of the certifications out there. Privacy, I think we've all heard of CIPP. That's a very common one I'll talk about a little bit later. IT, these are more focused on the information technology side. Then there's the RIM that we're probably most prevalently aware of. And I will cover most of these in my later steps in the presentation here. And then the legal folks have come up with some certifications in the last 10 or so years. The Certified E-Discovery Specialist is one that's out there for folks that are more on the e-discovery side and less on the RIM side. But you can see all of these things touch each other. They're all part of the information governance reference model because we all have different parts of the business. And you've all heard this for years about the importance of RIM is that we're kind of at the center of this and we bring all these folks together. Well, that's the relationship that we have. So there's a lot of certifications that are tangential to what we do as well. So here's the next couple slides. These are just going to be kind of a rundown of the alphabet soup. I'm not going to dwell on these in too much detail. I will call attention to the bolding on the slides, which is the certification on the left. And then if you see a bolded number off to the right, that gives you an idea of where I could obtain counts for how many current members are certified in that field or that certification. I've included those on the slide. You'll see some that are referenced as new. So SEGO is new. And Suzanne, I don't know if she can come. Can you come off of mute? I'm going to put you on the spot, Suzanne. So you mentioned at the beginning, you're a SEGO, right? You went through the SEGO program itself?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. So what did that entail when you went through that? Was that kind of similar to what I talked about where you had to attend a course?
Yeah, it was a lot of guest speakers, a lot of core content presented by folks who had either written a book on the subject. So you had the opportunity to interact with some deep knowledge specialists in each of the areas. Robert Smallwood, I would say, is the orchestrator of the SEGO certification. So a lot of the training is based on his textbook, and then he brings in experts for other areas to bring in other knowledge. And then there's an exam. You have 2 weeks to study for the exam, and then the exam at the end, and then you have to maintain your credentials through CPE credits.
So thank you for that, Susan. I appreciate that because that is one that I've not personally delved into myself. I'm familiar with Robert and I've seen the marketing materials for that program. I've never signed up for any of that myself, but that helps. Thank you for sharing that because that's one I know is a newer term, a newer certification that's out there. And I wanted to make sure people had a chance to hear a little bit about that as well. So they did have a partnership, and I'll talk about this with ARMA in a bit. They had a partnership with, or not ARMA, with the ICRM. They had a sub-certification or a post-certification to the CRM. Last year, it was a trial that Robert Smallwood came up to approach the ICRM about. They did it for a year. It was a trial, and I think they've decided to discontinue it. So that is no longer offered as a post-certification. That's why you don't see it listed up here under CRM. It was one at one point. It was a CRM SEGO, but that's no longer offered. So it is still its own program through his own association that he runs that through, and it's still a viable certification that's out there. It's just no longer as affiliated with the ICRM that they were trying out there. But you'll see here, there's a large count of CIPs. These are the ones from AIM. This program's been around probably since about 2005, 2007. I'm familiar with that one from way back then. The CRM has been around for over 40 years. I think they're probably pushing 45 now. I think they came out in 1975 officially. So they've been around for almost 50 years, actually. The group has, but the certification itself has been out there for about 45 or so. This is a constant number, and as a past regent, I've seen this number my entire career. There's about 1,000 CRMs. There's always about 1,000 CRMs. So they come and they go. People retire. People drop off the books. But what I will point to is I think when they just had their board meeting, their annual board meeting, they did reference that they had 800 applicants in the pipeline. So almost as many people in the pipeline as they have professionally certified already. So that's a positive thing. It used to be in the 300-400 range. So it's been a very big uptick. And part of that's in relation to the CRA. And I'm very proud to have been affiliated with the decision to do this. The CRM was the certification forever. for ICRM. They decided to take 3 of the 6 parts, and again, I'll get into more depth on this later, but they took 3 of the 6 parts of that and said, for somebody starting out, they don't have the breadth of knowledge that you need to have to get a CRM, but we can teach them the core and give them a sub-certification or a lesser certification because they're getting started out. So this gets their foot in the door and gets them familiar with the certification. So since we've instituted this in about 2017, 2018, my recollection may be a little off. I think it's about 2017 is when we first kicked this off. You'll see we've already got almost 300 members in the CRA, and it's been very popular. It's been very well received. So that offers kind of an entry-level certification in this field that lacked for many years. There was not one. So I spent a little bit extra time on this slide because this is the ones that we'll hit in depth a little bit more. It's more of the common terms you're probably familiar with. But going through the next couple of slides here, privacy, you'll see the CIPM is out there. That's Certified Information Privacy Manager. Now, if you look at the counts on these, they're astonishing. But these are professional organizations that put out privacy certification around the world. They're very commonly accepted. So these are one of the more gold standards as people need to have these. If you're going to be a privacy professional, you need to have some of these certifications. Many people have multiple certifications, but you'll see here the big one I'm talking about is the CIPP. And in total, you'll see there's 32,000. I've got the breakdown on the slide there. There's a lot. There's a lot of people that take this privacy certification. And I would say this is more of like what Suzanne, is it Suzanne? I think it's Suzanne, sorry. Suzanne described, is that you take a course, you're focused on that course, you have timeline to take the test, and then you pass the test, and then you have to maintain it. But it's more of that core focused, whereas the ICRM is more of that over your lifetime. You've got exposure to practice and professionalism. You're demonstrating more than just testing of the learning that you have. So these are more concentrated. There is an actual manual that comes out for each of these courses that tells you exactly what you need to study for. So that's one of the differences, but you'll see the numbers here pretty high. CIPT is the Certified Information Privacy Technologist. And the AIGP, which is new, it's an artificial intelligence governance professional. These are all administered by the IAPP, probably the gold standard for privacy education, privacy certification. Audit and risk, I've mentioned a few of these. CISA, CISM, the Certified Information Systems Manager. C-Risk is a common one I've seen a lot, the Certified Risk and Information Systems Control. CGEIT, Certified Governance of Enterprise IT. That's one that's been kind of coming up since 2007. And CIA, Certified Information Auditor, and Certified Quality Auditor. These are some of the auditing certifications that are available out there. In the legal space, I mentioned a few of these earlier too, the CEDS, the e-discovery specialist, and this is kind of a broad, I kind of lumped a few things together here. So legal and project management are shown here on this slide. You see the PMP and the CAPM, the Certified Associate in Project Management, both administered by the PMI, the Project Management Institute. And that one, again, the PMP, you'll see they claim there's 1.4 million people in the world that have this certification. So I'll put my pitch in here. Having a certification that everybody has may get you in the door, but it doesn't differentiate you. So some of the other certifications you've seen there can be differentiators. If you do have some of those other certifications that aren't as common, that may be one of those things that helps you get your foot in the door somewhere. Having some specialization that may not be something that everybody else has. So not putting it down, not building it up, just stating my observations on it. Trade, these are interesting too, because when I first did this slide presentation, there was PRISM, there was NAID, and all these things. Well, all of these groups have since come together, and they're one group now called iSigma. So they pulled in all their certifications as well. And these are more specialized in the trade field for the folks that are in the trade. These are certifications that are available typically to the folks that are in that practice. But they are available out there for folks that want to look into them. So I would encourage you to check those out as well. So this is kind of the meat and potatoes of our presentation, where I'm going to kind of walk you through in an organized fashion, or at least in my mind, it was organized, where I'm going to kind of compare apples to apples for you of these different certifications. And I'm going to give you the added bonus today and today only. You get some actual sample questions that we'll walk through here. So for people that are interested in this and are kind of nervous and not sure, I've tried to bridge some of that for you and give you some of the test questions from each of these different the different fields to give you an idea of what kind of things might be asked on the test, and to hopefully build some confidence up in you that you'll see that some of these aren't as complicated as it may seem. If you've been in RIM for a while, you know a lot of this content already. It's just kind of getting your feet wet with some of those test questions. So let's get started with the CRM, and I'll go CRM into CRA. So I'm going to cover the breadth first, and then I'll get specialized in the CRA a little bit after this one. But there are 6 domains, and each test is a little different. Each certification is a little different, but this has got 6 parts that we call it. 5 parts are actually subject matter, and the last part, the business case, is your well-rounded knowledge of representing how you would present a business case to leadership in terms of here's a problem statement you have to solve. So this is kind of a unique test in terms of some people like it, some people don't because it's stressful, but it's challenging you to apply what you learned in a work scenario. It's not just multiple choice test. So to get the full CRM, you have to pass parts 1 through 5 first, and then you take the part 6, which is the business case. And there's 2 different business cases. They're each worth 50 points, and you get partial credit for your scores on each of those. And if they total up to, I think the required is an average of 70% on that exam to pass, you will get your CRM. It's challenging. There's a lot of study groups that are available, and I encourage you to work through your chapters and ARMA and other places that you can find that, but they're offered everywhere for people that want to get in the study groups. And a lot of it's virtual now because of COVID. A lot of people have had to go virtual with that. And the ICRM itself offers some training to help out there, some workshops. So the requirement, as I mentioned, is a college degree, 4-year degree, and 1 year of professional RIM experience. Now, this is a sliding scale because some people get discouraged when they hear this and say, well, I've only got an associate's, or I don't have any college. Well, if you've been in the profession for 5 years and you don't have a college degree, that still qualifies because it's a sliding scale. So think of it in terms of if I took 4 years of college and 1 year of professional experience, if I only took 2 years of college, I would need 3 years of professional experience. So it kind of slides back, and you can actually replace a college degree with professional experience. The bottom line is they want you to be a professional, and they want you to have demonstrated some knowledge in this field. So that's really what that entrance criteria is all about. It's not about keeping people out as much as it is keeping the sanctity of the certification itself. Let it mean something, beyond just I took a test and passed the test. So here's where you're going to see this kind of theme on each of these slides going forward. These are the key elements that people ask about a lot of times when you're looking at a test. Well, what are the test questions like, or what are the tests like? Well, in this case, parts 1 through 5, as I mentioned, are 100 multiple choice question tests. That's what MCQ stands for, multiple choice questions. And then there's a 2 50-point test case for part 6, as I mentioned. The expense total is $750 if you were to pass every test all the way through. And then once you're certified, there's a $200 a year membership fee to the ICRM. That is something to consider. I'm not going to lie. That is something that when you look at a certification, do I want to have to spend that much money every year? That's a personal choice. If you want the quality of that designation, you may do that. I do that myself. There's also, you'll see this kind of varies from different certification to certification, but I bring that up for a reason, is that also, as I mentioned, you'll see the total cost for the exams is $750. Where could I subsidize that $750? Oh yeah, there was that scholarship that Nick mentioned earlier. So the reason I put this on the slide is to also show you there is some expense to this, but we can help with that if you apply for some of those reimbursements. So don't get discouraged by the numbers there. The CEU, or continuing education units, you're required to get 100 contact hours effectively of certification maintenance points over a 5-year cycle. So if you break that down, that's 20 hours a year. If you go to an ARMA conference, that's about 15 hours a year. If you go to your chapter meetings, that's about an hour per meeting. Hopefully you'll get some certification maintenance for this. If they're those that are maintaining your certification, you'll get credit for going to some of your chapter meetings. So things like that are what compile those points up. Here's some of the resources. And again, I don't expect anybody to jot all this stuff down. I will share the slide deck after the fact, but it has all my speaker notes in here. It has all the links to these documents. But they're on the website for the ICRM. There is exam prep, and they just refreshed some of this. The exam prep outlines are out there. They're going to be putting more sample questions out there for you to take practice tests if you want to do a little bit of practice before you take the exam. Some of the benefits of the ICRM is your RIM knowledge is gained through certification and mastering related competencies, is directly related to the CRM's ability to garner higher level RIM positions. So as I mentioned, this is one of those certifications that's kind of in high demand for those that are RIM IG professionals. You'll see this CRM preferred or CRM required as a posting. They demonstrate the qualifications for many of the top tier careers. Typically your directors of programs, managers of programs tend to require CRM. As I mentioned, there's 45 plus years of demonstrated professional excellence, and it continues on. So this is a certification that's been around in my entire career in RIM. It's been around. So this is one of the few ones that's been there since the beginning. So here we go. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to look at the screen here. For those keeping score at home, nobody has to tell anybody what your answers are, but you'll see the flashing answer. Structured data is information stored within a database. So that's a question that's on the exam, or a similar question that would be on the exam. Here's a second one. Electronic document imaging systems offer all of the following benefits except, and it'll flash here in just a second, but it's going to be E, elimination of storage devices. So that just gives you kind of an example and from what part it was on to kind of give you an idea. It's not as scary as it seems. Some people get intimidated by the test taking and intimidated by what types of questions are going to be on there. For me, I took a couple of these practice exams and took a couple of seminars to get ready for this. It really built up my confidence, and I sat down and ripped through all the tests in one sitting. I failed one. I had to retake it once, but it was easy for me to do that because I had been working in the field for years. I just had to unlearn how we did things in my company and learn more of what the standards were in terms of what the general answer should be versus how we did it at State Farm where I work. So the next one, as I mentioned, is the CRA. And I guess I'll pause there. Is there any questions real quick? I know I talk kind of fast, but I don't want to rip through all this. Does anybody have any questions, or you want me to slow down a little bit? Nope. Okay. All right. So the CRA, as I mentioned, is three of the 6 parts you saw on the previous slide there. So this is parts 2, 3, and 4. This is what the ICRM is deemed kind of the core of records management. So this is the basics. This is where everybody gets their feet wet. They get started. You're dealing with either records information, creation, and use. You're dealing with record storage, retrieval, conversion, and facilities. You're dealing with records information, retention, protection, and disposition. So the life cycle of a record pretty much is what you're talking about with those 3 different parts. That is the core. If I didn't delve into it on the previous slide, but part 1 was management principles. So that's more of, I'm in leadership, I'm running a program. Here's some skills I need to have to run a team, right? Here's how I manage a group in records management. Part 5 was technology. So that was a little bit more depth of how we integrate with technology, how technology assists RIM. That's one of the more challenging parts for people to pass. If you're not in the technology field, it's a little difficult for some folks to pass that. And then, as I mentioned, part 6 was the case studies overall, beginning to end, give us an example of how you would apply this. So you'll see here, this is what I talked about as being the core of records management. So anybody with a year or 2's experience in the field, whether you're an imaging tech, whether you're working in a warehouse storing records, whether you're doing document conversion, your retrievals for your customers on the floor, whatever your program is, whatever your company is, or your line of business is, that gives you kind of the core of records management. So they've deemed that as they still look for a college degree and 1 year professional RIM experience as your criteria to get your foot in the door. Again, the sliding scale applies here. So if you've been working in this for 3 years and you've got a 2-year associate's degree, that would apply. I will say this, when I was the regent over this, it was our goal to find a way to allow you to sit for the exams, not our goal to find a way to turn you away. Some people that ran it before me were very rigid about requirements, and I'm like, okay, look, let's try to find a way to give these people an opportunity. They showed an interest. We weren't looking for ways to tell you no. We were looking for ways to tell you yes. So it's don't let it intimidate you. Always ask the question if you ever have a question about that. So for this, again, it's the 100 multiple choice questions. That's the same for the parts 2, 3, and 4. You'll see the cost for this overall is only $400 total. That's the application fee, and then the $100 fee for sitting for each of the exams. There's still that $200 per year maintenance, but the nice thing about the CRM in the CRA. CRM, you have, and I didn't cover this and I apologize. CRM, you have 5 years from the point you apply and start testing to complete. You only have 5 years to pass all 5 parts and the case study to get your certification. If you don't complete it in those 5 years, you have to start over again. In the CRA, obviously it's the same 5-year cycle. You have 5 years to get your CRA. But the really neat thing we did, and again, I'm patting myself on the back because I was part of this decision process. Once you get your CRA, you have the rest of your life to complete your CRM. So this inherently makes this a nice entry level certification for you to get and get yourself kind of certified and starting down the path. But then you take the pressure of the timeline off yourself. You know, you can take these tests for the rest of your year. So you can go back and take parts 1, parts 5, and then eventually the case study. And you'll get your certification eventually if you wanted to move up to the CRM. So that's the pitch I'll make on that. And I apologize for skipping over that on the CRM slide. But again, the same certification maintenance applies. You have 100 contact hours over a 5-year cycle. Again, breaks down to about 20 hours per year.
Nick, may I interrupt for a quick moment?
Sure.
Are there natural chunks that go together? Like, if I was going to ask one of my staff to take the CRA, for instance, do they take those parts all at the same time? Do you pay for them all at the same time?
It depends. You know, everything I'm going to tell you, I work in insurance, so everything depends, right? Okay. So it depends. It depends on the acumen of your employee. If you've got somebody you know is a rock star and is a good test taker, send them. I would encourage them to send them. It's online testing, I think now. It's a lot different than when I was doing it. It was a lot more complicated. I had to go into a test center and sit there for a whole day. I took all 5 parts. It was exhausting, honestly, because it was a full day. But it's possible. Now with this is only 3 parts. If you know they know their stuff, send them. Honestly, just don't make them drag it out. Or if you want to break it apart to let them have that sense of accomplishment and some building towards something, it just depends on your person. If they seem a little difficult with taking tests, maybe ease them into it and take 1 part. And again, of those, I'll back up here. Of those parts, you know, they may be doing something more than the others. So maybe start them off in an area that they're an expert in, you know. But again, don't lose sight of what I mentioned. Teach them to study the content that's the focus of the test, not what you do in your company, because you'll have internal practices that may differ from some of the industry standards because of the nature of your business. I work in a highly litigated company. Records management didn't drive our decision making. Litigation drives our decision making. So we were more an e-discovery shop and what we needed to preserve, and less of a traditional RIM shop, because we had to respond to over 2,000 lawsuits at any point in time. We were constantly in the courts. That's what built our program, not basic RIM principles that we adhere to and hold fast to. We were tested in the court of law. We weren't tested by a program on paper. So we had to do things a little different. I had to unlearn some of that when I took the exams. It was very difficult for me.
Thank you.
Yep. Good question, though. Thank you. So these are some of the materials. Again, very similar materials that you'll see on the ICRM website for taking that. But you'll see some of the books there. Patricia Franks is one of the people that started the San Jose State University program. Her materials in there, these are all the same names, I believe, that were on the previous slide as well. There was a management book on that other slide as well. But these are the 3 cores, I think, that are current, and they're still current from their website, is what the core of the knowledge body that is used for the test questions that you'll see on that exam. Again, some of the benefits, as I mentioned, it gets your foot in the door with certification in that field. It's a starting point. It's not an end point. Typically, a lot of people go on from the CRA to the CRM, but it's a solid foundational records management background. And again, this was a really cool thing when we did it, because we didn't have anything like this before. We didn't have a basic RIM certification, and this is kind of that stepping point that's still kind of unique, quite honestly, with all the folks that are out there and all the certifications you see. So here's an example from part 2. The answer here is going to be risk. A risk assessment is the evaluation of a possibility of incurring loss. And our next question, from part 4. While appraising the legal value of record series, one would try to understand its potential for litigation support. These are those types of questions that sometimes seem too easy to be correct. But there's a lot of these on the test. You'll find that you'll second guess yourself because it seems like it's just too straightforward. This makes so much sense to me. Why is this even a question? But yes, again, the intent is to show you don't be scared. Don't be scared if you're looking at taking some of these exams. Okay, the next one I'm going to cover is one I do not hold myself. I have several associates that I worked with over the years that have this. I'm very good friends with Jesse Wilkins, who was at AIM International when this was stood up. Jesse is actually the one that helped me with this slide, getting it updated and making sure I was maintaining the current information in here. But their domains they have 5 different domains: creating and capturing information, extracting intelligence from information, digitizing information, automating governance and compliance, and implementing an information management solution. So they have 5 different domains that they focus on in their exam. Your requirements for this one, and again, I don't mean this tongue in cheek, but the requirements to get this certification is you pass the exam. You pay your fee and you pass the exam. So there is no prerequisites that you have to take this. Anybody who's interested can take this exam. It's 100 multiple choice questions. There's a $450 exam fee with a $175 renewal. It's a 3-year cycle. It doesn't require an annual membership. So this one may be more cost effective to you over time, just being honest with you. You'll see the credit hours that they're required to have are 60 CEUs over a 3-year cycle, which again breaks down to 20 hours a year. Sound familiar? Now, the neat thing with some of these certifications, once we have all these letters after our name, and I always pick on Andrew Asazi. Andrew Asazi has more letters after his name than are in the alphabet itself. He's got so many certifications, but maintaining them, a lot of this stuff double dips. So like when I go to an ARMA conference, I get credit here for my CRM, and I also get credit for the IGP at the same time. So that's how I'm able to maintain that. But that's why I keep bringing back to that magic number. What's your contact hours per year? It's about 20. So typically, if I take something that gets me about 20 hours of contact per year and I'm consistent with that, I will be able to maintain my certification. So some of the resources, again, are on the AIM website. I will tell you, this one is a little more difficult to navigate if you go out to AIM. They don't provide you a lot of content for free on the website. They do encourage you to join as an AIM Plus Pro. Totally understandable. They're not going to give their content away for free, but that's how you get to it. So I wasn't able to pull a lot of content from their site. I used to be able to get more. Now I can't get as much because you have to have an AIM Plus Pro membership. I have Disney Plus. I do not have an AIM Plus Pro. So I don't get this content on my Disney Plus. But this, again, is one of those certifications that's out there that is pretty commonly known. You saw the numbers. There was about 750 people that maintain that. So comparable to the CRM. There's about as many people with this as that have their CRM. This is more of your, in my words, nobody else is more the IT side or more the consultant side. I think is more prevalent in this field. These are the folks that go out and work with different programs, have a general breadth of knowledge, typically are consulting and or they're more on the IT side of the house. I work with document management, the traditional stuff to AIM. The folks that are more interested in AIM than ARMA tend to be more of the technology providers, the RIM providers within an organization. Here's a sample question from the CIP. This one's a little different. You get to choose 2. What types of information should be gathered as part of an information inventory? Answers are A and C. Where information is stored physically or logically, and whether copies or renditions exist, and which is which. Sample question 2 here for the CIP. What's the best way to ensure the authenticity of a digital document? The answer is D, apply appropriate security, including access controls. So authenticity tied to access controls or validity of that. So again, not too complicated, but if you're not familiar with the concepts or the principles, it may be a little difficult for somebody. IGP, this is another one that I do have. I was on the ARMA board when this was rolled out. I was part of the Information Governance Professional Certification. I will be honest with you. I took this. I felt I had everything I needed personally with my CRM. I took this because one, I was a member of the ARMA board, and it wasn't free. I did have to pay for it. But I gave myself one chance. I said, I'm going to sign up for this and take it cold just to see if I can pass it based on what I know. And I was not involved in the exam testing procedures or writing of any of the exam questions. I was just taking it as a board member of the ARMA International. As we were working on this, I am proud to say I did pass. I did get my IGP in the first pass, but it was a stubborn point with me. I said, I'm not going to study at all for this because I should know this. I'm a member of this association. I've been doing this for 20 years. This is nothing new to what I've been doing. I'm going to take this one time. So that's why I have my IGP, as I was stubborn and I took it one time and said, if I pass it, I pass it. If I don't, I'm going to walk away from it. So I do have that IGP certification. You'll see here the domains are somewhat similar, but more focused on an IG program within an organization. So their topics or domains are managing information risk and compliance, developing the strategic plan for IG, developing the framework, developing the program, establishing the business integration and oversight, and then aligning technology with the IG framework itself. They have similar requirements to the CRM. They have a college degree and a minimum of 3 years of management or leadership experience in any of the following fields: RIM, law, compliance, audit, IT, et cetera, et cetera. So they're a little bit more stringent on the entrance criteria, and they don't have a sliding scale that I'm aware of. I don't think you can substitute anything for college degree. So that is a barrier to entry for some that aren't able to get into that. Their exam is 140 questions, but only 125 of those are scored because I think they include 15 test questions every exam to try them out. I think that's part of their testing practices, is that they'll put new questions in there and see how they score out. And then if they have questions that meet the criteria, eventually those will work their way into the body of the 125. You don't know which 125 are scored, so you're basically taking a test for 140 questions. You need to do your best. But that total cost for this one is $599 for application and exam fee. They don't charge you anything except for every 3 years. And then it's part of your certification maintenance is you have to re-up for every 3 years. So again, a little bit more affordable than the CRM. Longer term over, short term and longer term, it's a little bit more affordable. You'll see their CEUs are focused around the 3-year cycle, not the 5-year cycle. And that's again about, what's the number? 20 hours per year. They have references on their website, and I will tell you, I was a little bit discouraged as a member of ARMA and a past president of ARMA. They're in transition right now because they've been revising their content, but the content is not available on their website right now. There's links that went to nothing. They're broken right now because I know it's under construction and they're working on it, but there is nothing practical out there available right now. So I was a little discouraged in that when I went out to the website. But that is the handbook. They have a handbook. They have a body of knowledge, which you're required to pay for. It's not free. The IGP study guide and workbook is also not free if you choose to take that. It's a bundle I think you get, and you'll get some of these materials that helps you prepare for the exam. It gives you some of these viable items to help you work through that, but they're not free. You do have to pay for those materials. Some of the benefits: it helps improve the speed of business for your organization, how you use information more effectively, and how you help you become more successful professionally. These are all self-professed things that each of these groups always says, this is the benefits of our certification. So the proof is in the pudding, and did I get my job because of that IGP? And then that would be valuable to me. That would be helpful. Can I apply it to what I'm doing? Here's some IGP sample questions. So this first one: policies related to information governance include information security, privacy, retention, and intellectual property management. Next question: which of the following is most likely to satisfy an outside regulator looking for evidence that employees have been trained? Oop, I jumped past it, but the answer was D there. Certificates of completion for online training models. I don't think you're going to get written assurance from a C-level executive, but good luck. So the next one we're going to touch on, this is kind of a roll, but this is the focused, the CIPP, the Certified Information Privacy Professional. This is another very common one. This, you can see the domains here for this, and I'm checking myself on time. I've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to pick up the pace here just a little bit. The domains for privacy, it's US privacy laws, and there are certifications in all different jurisdictions. So I'm focusing on the US one here, but there's some for Asia, some for Canada, some for Europe, things like that. There's different focuses for them. So you're learning different privacy laws based on which test you're taking. Again, the requirements for this are pass the exam. This is a 90 multiple choice question, and only 75 of their questions are scored. It's a $550 exam fee, $250 every 2 years for maintenance, so about $125 a year on average. And look at that, they have 20 CPEs on a 2-year cycle, so they're actually only requiring you 10 hours per year to maintain that. And a lot of these can overlap even with this privacy certification with some of the stuff we do for ICRM and IGP personally. You'll see a list of the references, and again, this will be in the handout material that you'll get after the meeting here. But this is kind of, like I said, the gold standard in the privacy field. This is one that most people have if you're going to be a privacy professional. Here's some example questions. Use of a smart card would be identified as what type of a safeguard? Two-factor authentication is the answer there. And safe harbor violations are enforced. This one's a tricky one. Unless you studied for this, I don't know that you'd know this, or unless you worked in the government, but the answer is B, U.S. Department of Transportation. So to wrap up, and I wanted to leave a couple minutes for questions here if anybody has any, but which certification is right for you? I mentioned earlier, I work in insurance. I work with legal folks all the time. It depends, okay? I can't give you the prescription for every individual on this call. It depends what you're looking for. Are you looking to advance your career within the current position you have in your organization? Is that something that differentiates your manager from you? You know, you might want to take a certain certification that's looked at by your company. Are you looking to post outside of your company? Are you looking for a career change? Are you looking to get out of the company because you've been held down and you don't feel like you're ever going to get a chance to move up because that person's never going to retire? Okay, well, what's competitive for you outside? What field are you getting into? Are you more privacy focused? Are you more technology focused? Are you more, I want to be a director of a RIM program at a law firm? You know, there's just different things for different people, and there are different requirements for those types of positions. I think the job boards are the best way to find out what's relevant to employers if you're looking in that case. Is there any employer support or reimbursement? Again, shameless plug, I mentioned some support that we provide, but some employers actually reimburse you for certifications. I got reimbursed for my CRM at State Farm. I did not get reimbursed for my IGP at State Farm. We didn't have that available to us as a program that was available. So those are the questions you really need to ask yourself. Talk to your chapter members, talk to your peers, talk to coworkers, go to an ARMA conference, look at the letters on people's business cards. You know, what is the ones that you seem to see are the ones that are relevant. When you see a professional speaker come in, you know, here's an example here, you know, you've got letters after my name. Okay. Why does Nick have those? Okay. I'm telling you, they meant something to me. They meant, you know, and some of mine, I work in IT. So that's why I have that one that Ray really stumbled over, that ITIL version 3. That is a service management standard that I passed when I was being moved over in the IT shop and was doing some professional education there as well. So, but thank you all for your for attending today. Thank you for the questions along the way. Thank you again, Suzanne, for helping out with some of the SEGO piece that I didn't have. But I wanted to just kind of cover that content for everybody and give you an opportunity to see some things that you may not have seen before. So, and I made it without coughing once. Thank you.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Can I ask another quick question?
Yes.
Hopefully a quick question. Specifically with the CRM and the IGP, should you apply first and then take courses, read materials, prep for it, or should you be all prepped and then apply?
You have for ICRM or the CRM, you have a 5-year clock. Yeah. So yeah, once you apply, that clock starts. So maybe take some prep classes or like attend a seminar. Like I mentioned, I don't know about your chapter, if you guys offer any study groups out where you're at. Chicago chapter, I live close to Michigan. Michigan has a ton of these that they offer. California, a lot of chapters out there, they offer these. So if there's study groups available, if there's sample test questions, can I sign up for a seminar? You know, maybe your chapter does a seminar on these CRM prep, you know, you can order that through the ICRM, and I think can offer that as a chapter meeting. So, so yes, to your question, Susan, I would encourage you to look first. Yeah, get familiar with what you're actually going to be testing on. Maybe get some of the materials first. Start reading one of those books first, or taking a look at the textbook first. For the IGP, I don't know that it's as big of a deal. I think the IGP is more that focused content. So you'll have to invest in that package, which you can do before you actually apply. So you can invest in the package and see, okay, what's in there? What preps me for this? I know they always offer something about it at the ARMA conferences every year. If you send your people to conference, there's always something that they're offering there from the IGP for training. They even have like pre-conference, post-conference workshops, sometimes at MER and things like that for that particular certification. So yes, so good question. Start looking first before you actually fill out the application and start the clock ticking. That's the answer. Yeah.
And we did have some prep courses pre-pandemic, but within the chapter, but
yep.
Since the pandemic, we haven't done much with respect to that.
Yeah, I understand. So.
Hello, I have a question.
Yep.
Where do you see the most overlap between these certifications? Is there, because there certainly is, I think, some overlap. I got a SIGO recently. I got it this year, and I was looking at the questions you were answering in your sample. And, certainly having that helped me, with the test taking mindset and how the questions work.
Exactly.
And also content, it just, some things just made sense. I could actually answer that question with confidence. But correct. Where do you see the most overlap between certifications?
I would say the one you referenced there, the SIGO, probably overlaps most directly with IGP. If anybody's had both, I would say they're probably the closest related. CRM is broad and somewhat deep. It's less deep than it used to be. I think that's what they used to say. Pat Cunningham from Chicago used to always use this. One's broad and deep. Like CIP is wide and shallow. It covers a lot of things, but it's very shallow in how deep it goes. Whereas the CRM is more deep but it is still pretty wide. So IGP is focused on the information governance programs themselves and how you administer that. So more the management level side of it. And not that there's not management involved in the CRM, but you saw in the CRM, there's very specific functional things that you need to be versed in, not just I manage the program that does this, but I actually have to know how to do these things too. So I would say, and obviously CRA, CRM, there's a huge overlap. As I mentioned multiple times in the presentation, is that 3 of the parts are the same parts. So you're actually doing that. But yeah, overall, those are my experience. Privacy doesn't really overlap with any of them. Privacy's touched on in all of them, but the IAPP certification is very focused on privacy only. They're not focused on a RIM program. And so hopefully that helps answer your question, Hutch.
That helps.
Yep. But you're right. You saw from the tests themselves, most of those questions look like they could have been from any test, didn't they? They really could. Any other questions? All right. Well, I didn't go over. That's new for me because I usually talk a lot. But I thank you all for joining today. Thank you to your chapter for inviting me. Ray, thanks again. Love you, man.
Nick, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Just this is a long-term question. You gonna be in Houston?
I'm gonna try. Yes, I have a friend down there. I'm gonna try, and I'm actually he's a pilot, so I'm gonna see if I can talk him into flying up here, pick me up, and driving me down, or flying me down there directly. So
nice.
See if I can pull that out. How cool would that be, Ray, if I showed up on the runway with my bag and get dropped off in my private jet?
I'll be there with the video, that's for sure.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
for sure. Yeah. All right, well, Nick, thank you very much for presenting. Greatly appreciate that. And for those of you are on this call, our next meeting will be January 11th. We are in the process of securing a speaker. We'll let everybody know when that happens as soon as we find out. But again, Nick, thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nice meeting y'all. Thank you.
All right, and that concludes our meeting for today. So thank you very much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in January.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray.